After 10 years of struggle, the dishwasher revealed an incredible talent that left millionaire Charles in tears. Joe squinted through the din of the Good Neighbor diner, the clatter of dishes mixing with the laughter of regulars, whose faces were washed in the soft yellow glow of the overhead lights. His heart raced a relentless thrum of dreams unfulfilled. He was 30, with soap-laden hands scrubbing grease off plates, but within him burned a yearning to sing, to share stories through song. Yet, here he was a dishwasher, invisible to those who only saw him as a servant to their meals. His mother, weary from the life they lived, dismissed his dreams, putting them aside like leftovers on an old tray. "Get a real job, Joe," she'd say, eyes heavy with the weight of reality. Meanwhile, his younger sister Caroline, a beacon of hope with sparkling eyes and big aspirations, often whispered, "You should play, Joe. Your music is beautiful." She wanted college, but Joe couldn't see how they could afford it with mounting bills and hospital visits to care for their mom. As Joe scrubbed stubborn stains from pots and pans, the stories of the diner's patrons echoed in his mind, a chorus of struggles and triumphs. The veterans, with thousand-yard stares and memories tucked beneath their weathered skin, shared lessons of resilience that kept Joe grounded. They understood him. They felt the burdens of dreams abandoned too soon, and in their eyes, he could see a spark hope ignited by the thought of his own music mirroring their lives. One clear October Friday night, the atmosphere felt electric. The diner hummed with excitement over a local charity event. As the clock ticked toward closing, a faraway promise tugged at his heartstrings. Nervous energy surged through him, and with an incredible leap of faith, he agreed to step on stage. The stage was nothing more than a milk crate with a microphone wrapped in duct tape. But to Joe, it felt like the world. His hands gripped the guitar, calloused fingers trembling as he looked out over the crowd, and the mere thought sent his heart racing. Each strum vibrated through his chest. Just as he took a breath to sing, doubt clawed at him. What if no one cared? Yet, as he opened his mouth and poured his soul into the melody, the energy shifted. The simplicity of his truth cut through the air, and suddenly, he was alive. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The applause began softly, but as Joe bared his heart, it swelled overwhelming waves of appreciation. He caught a glimpse of a distinguished man, Charles, seated in the corner, transfixed. For the first time, Joe felt seen, his voice painting a vivid picture of struggle and hope. In those fleeting moments, every hardship and want wove together like a tapestry. But as the last notes lingered in the air, doubt slinked back, and would this audience remember the dishwasher who dared to sing? And what would this mean back home? As Charles approached, a spark of recognition flickered in his eye. But Joe felt his heart race. He was on the brink of something transformative, a shift that could shake their fragile family balance. What awaited in the silence that followed the hope or the fear? It loomed before him like the weight of his responsibilities, leaving an aching question in the air, a mystery waiting to unfold. Joe held his breath as Charles closed the distance between them. The din of the diner faded, replaced by the pounding of his heart. The face of his mother flashed in his mind, thousands of nights spent comforted by her sleep-deprived whispers. Every word he sang felt like a defiance, an act of rebellion against the perceived fate she had outlined for him. "Your voice, it's beautiful," Charles said, his eyes glimmering with a mix of admiration and something deeper. Joe felt the weight of the world slip away, just for a moment. "I've never heard anything like it. It moved me in a way I can't explain." What do you mean?" Joe stumbled, grappling with the sincerity in Charles's tone. Was it real, or merely a fleeting sentiment cast out into the glowing diner? "I mean," Charles continued, every word carrying a potential that sent chills down Joe's spine, "I want you to perform at a fundraiser I'm hosting next month. It could change everything for you." The world tilted on its axis. A fundraiser? A chance to step into the light. Joe's mind swirled with possibilities, but a fresh wave of doubt crashed over him. dragging all the optimism away. I can't. I have responsibilities. I'm just a dishwasher. Nonsense. You're more than that. You have a gift, Joe. If you don't seize this, you might always wonder what could have been. Your sister believes in you, Charles replied, his voice firm but kind. So do I. In that moment, Joe envisioned Caroline's face, the way her eyes lit up when he played for her boundless belief in his potential to rise above their circumstances. He could see her whispering words of encouragement, drowning out his own insecurities. But what of their mother? What would she think? The doubts loomed larger than ever, weaving tightly around his chest. Look, I want to help you, Charles said softly, sensing Joe's hesitation. But you need to take the first step. Will you think about it? The thought hung in the air, tantalizing and terrifying all at once. Joe nodded cautiously, fighting the urge to flee back to the comfort of his soapy sink, the unassuming shadows of the kitchen. Could he truly step away from familiarity and embrace possibility? I will, he whispered, the words barely escaping his lips. Charles smiled, the warmth of it igniting something deep within Joe. A glimmer of hope kindled in the back of his mind, challenging his long-held beliefs. But as the evening wore on, doubts started swirling again, casting dark shadows over the light Charles had tried to provide. What if he failed? What if his mother's fears came true? Pretenders were everywhere. Could he really bear the weight of the world with just a flimsy dream? Still, once home, those dreams whispered louder than his fears. Caroline bounded to him excitedly when he walked through the door, barely containing her enthusiasm. Did you see Charles? What did he say? You were amazing. Please tell me you'll play more. Joe felt a pit grow in his stomach. How could he dampen her joy? He offered me a chance to perform. At a fundraiser, her eyes widened. That's incredible, Joe. You have to do it. The questions flooded back. What about their mother? Could they accept this turn of fate? He couldn't shake the feeling that embracing this opportunity might break them apart instead of bringing them together. But deep down, something shifted within him. I'll think about it, he finally said, forcing a smile. As Caroline's laughter echoed around him, a flicker of determination sparked. Just maybe this could be the beginning. But would he dare to chase it? That night, alone in his thoughts, he realized the real struggle was just beginning. Would he have the courage to confront his fears and take that leap? What awaited him on the other side of that decision? These questions hung heavily above him like a storm cloud, and somewhere, deep in his heart, he felt the stir of a hurricane ready to unleash its force. What lay ahead was still unknown, but one thing was certain: once he made that choice, there would be no turning back. Would he seize the moment or let it slip away? Joe woke up the next morning with sunlight streaming through the kitchen window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. For a moment, the warmth convinced him it would be just another day of scrubbing dishes and stacking plates. But then, the memories of last night crashed back: the music, the hope, and Charles' encouraging words. He could almost hear Caroline's laughter still ringing in his ears. That sounded different, he thought. It was a laughter filled with possibilities. He pushed himself up, determination settling in his bones. Get started, Joe, he muttered into the silence. You have to think about it. As he moved through the motions of his morning routine, Joe's heart raced at the thought of performing. Did he have what it took? Could he really dare to believe in himself? He'd spent years trapped in the cycle of life, running the same path, too scared to divert. Now, standing at this potential turning point, the gravity of it all made his hands tremble. He recalled how supportive Caroline had been, the way she had cheered him on, like he was already a star. You have to do it, she had said, her eyes sparkling with hope. Still, he hesitated. The kitchen was his safety net, a place where he could hide from himself and the world. The clatter of dishes felt comfortable, like a familiar heartbeat. When he glanced at his reflection in the window, uncertainty waned against a budding confidence. Joe grabbed his guitar, feeling the weight of it in his hands, familiar yet foreign. He strummed a few chords, listening to their echo fill the empty space around him. The sound bounced back like an unanswered question. Would anyone really care to hear what he had to say? Just then, the door swung open, and Caroline strutted in, a paper in hand. Joe, look, she exclaimed, bursting with excitement. There's a talent showcase at the community center next week. You should sign up. His stomach nodded. A talent showcase? What if I'm terrible? Caroline smirked, crossing her arms defiantly. You know what's worse than failing? Not trying at all. You can't go back to just scrubbing dishes forever. Her words hung heavily in the air between them. It was true. He didn't want to settle for a life spent on the sidelines. But still, a voice inside screamed for caution. Caution about what would happen if he stepped forward and didn't win. Maybe. I could try to perform at the fundraiser first, he proposed, hoping to dial down the pressure. Or maybe you could do both. She grinned. Show everyone what you've got. You'd be amazing. But the words floated dangerously close to an expectation he wasn't sure he could meet. What if he faltered in front of others? I don't know if I can stop. Just take that leap, Joe. Caroline's sincerity cut through his doubts. You have a gift. Let it shine. He looked into her eyes, saw nothing but faith, and for the first time, a spark flared in his own. Was it wrong to desire more? As he watched her enthusiasm, something shifted in Joe. I'll do it, he finally declared, his voice steadier than he felt. Caroline squealed, running to him and throwing her arms around his neck. Yes, this is your moment. In that embrace, a clock ticked somewhere deep within him, the sound of time moving forward. But as the day slipped away, so did some of the joy in his decision. Anxiety draped over him like a heavy coat. He knew that once he stepped on that stage, he would be vulnerability personified. Everyone would see him not just Joe the dishwasher, but Joe the dreamer. Would they understand? Would they care? The path ahead was illuminated with a mix of hope and fear, and he suddenly felt the weight of expectation weighing heavily on his shoulders. The stakes had never felt so high, and the question loomed larger than ever. Would he rise to meet them or crumble under pressure? The night before the talent showcase, everything would change. Would he finally embrace the dreams he'd locked away so long? Joe spent the next few days in a whirlwind of emotions. Each time he picked up his guitar, his heart raced with excitement, then plummeted into doubt. His fingers would dance over the strings, but the music felt foreign, like trying to speak a language he hadn't used in ages. He wasn't just Joe anymore, he was Joe the performer, and this new identity weighed heavy on his mind. Caroline was there every step of the way. She became his biggest supporter and his sounding board. They practiced together in the evenings, taking turns strumming chords while the others sang. On the second night, Caroline had suggested they pick a song that meant something to him. Something that captures what you feel inside, she said, her eyes sparkling with sincerity. Joe chose an old folk song he remembered from his childhood, a piece his grandmother used to sing while she baked pies on lazy Sunday afternoons. It was filled with warmth and memory, and even though the lyrics made him a bit vulnerable, he poured his heart into it, strumming the guitar with passion. As he finished, Caroline clapped and yelled, "Yes, that's it. You were born to do this." Her enthusiasm lit a light inside of him, but as he basked in her praise, a shadow lingered, a doubt that always crept back in. What if I mess up? He whispered, the joy quickly fading. Caroline sighed but smiled softly. What if you don't? What if you still try? She nudged him playfully. You're not doing this for anyone else. You're doing it because you love it. He wanted to believe her. He really did. But the thought of stepping onto that stage at the community center, the idea sent shivers down his spine. The crowd, the lights, the expectation, it all felt like an Olympic-sized diving board he stood on the edge of, peering down into dark waters. The night before the talent showcase, Joe tossed and turned in bed, anxiety gnawing at his stomach like a persistent hunger. He could almost hear the whispers of the past echoing in his mind, reminding him of all the times he chose safety over risk, the moments he drifted through life while his dreams gathered dust. What if he took that stage and froze? What if he delivered the worst performance ever? It haunted him, those what-ifs, twisting and turning like a storm in his head. Joe finally got up and wandered into the kitchen, the quiet of night wrapping around him. He picked up his guitar and started strumming once more. The soft plucking of strings soothed him, grounding him in the moment. He sang the song he had chosen, and with each note, he felt a little lighter. The doubts faded, for just a breath, replaced by a flicker of hope. Okay, Joe, he whispered to himself, reinforcing what Caroline had said. You do this for you. In the dim light, he looked at the clock, and reality crashed back. Tomorrow would be the big moment, and fear chased hope right out of the room. But as he returned to bed, his fingers still tingling from the guitar, a thought nestled deep. Perhaps stepping out into the unknown wasn't meant to crush him, but to release him. Maybe vulnerability wasn't a weakness. It could be strength. With these thoughts swirling in his mind, he fell into a restless sleep. The dream was vivid, a mix of stage lights and familiar faces. But before it could fully form, it twisted into a question that hung in the air. What kind of performer would he become? As dawn broke, shadows danced across his room, and he stood at the crossroads of fear and hope. What awaited him on the other side could change everything. Was he ready to embrace it all? The morning sun climbed higher, but the pulse of doubt still thudded in his chest, feeding into a question that loomed larger than life. Was he really ready to take the leap? The talent showcase was just hours away. Joe felt the light of the sun creeping through his curtains, pulling him from sleep. He groaned softly, the weight of the day ahead settling heavily on his chest. It was time one more chance to redefine who he was. But who was he really? The days of doubt and fear piled like stacks of dishes, waiting to be washed away that he rolled out of bed and stood in front of the mirror. The reflection staring back at him was still filled with uncertainty. But there was something else, too, a spark of excitement, a glimmer of hope waiting to break free. He ran his fingers through his hair and took a deep breath, feeling a mix of determination and nausea swirl inside him. In the kitchen, the gentle clang of pots and pans felt like a countdown. He reached for his guitar, fingers trembling slightly as he tuned the strings. The quiet of the morning enveloped him, each note creating a private world where doubts had no place. As he played, he closed his eyes, focusing on the simple joy that had once drawn him to music. It was the same joy his grandmother had shared, the warmth of her singing wafting through their home like the smell of fresh-baked cookies. With every strum, he allowed himself to believe Caroline's words. This was for him. The fleeting moments of joy ignited a fledgling confidence. He remembered how she cheered him on, how her belief in him was like a lifebuoy in a stormy sea. Maybe he could do this. An hour later, Joe stood outside the community center, heart pounding in tune with the rhythm of his thoughts. A crowd was beginning to gather, laughter and chatter spilling out like a well-guarded secret. He caught sight of Caroline waving enthusiastically, and her smile kindled a flame inside him. He took a step forward, pulling his guitar closer, letting its familiar weight anchor him in the moment. "Ready?" Caroline asked, her eyes shining with excitement. "Well, I'm not going to win any popularity contests," Joe replied, trying to jokingly deflect the weight of the moment. "Joe, you're going to blow them away. Just take a deep breath. Look at me, you got this." She stepped closer, her seriousness fading as she brought lightness to the moment. With a hesitant nod, he climbed the steps to the small stage, his feet suddenly feeling heavy. He could see familiar faces in the crowd, neighbors, friends, the cute girl from the coffee shop. Suddenly, the low murmur of their voices felt deafening. But then he remembered the strumming, the joy of simply making music. He brushed his sweaty palms against his jeans and placed his fingers on the strings. As he began to play, a profound silence fell. Every note floated into the air, and he felt the weight of his fears start to lift. The lyrics began to unravel, pouring from his heart. He lost himself in the melody, his inhibitions melting away like ice in the summer sun. But just as he opened his mouth to sing the chorus, an unexpected rush of emotions surged through him, threatening to choke his voice. What if this was it? What if the flash of confidence was just a fleeting moment, and his doubts would smother him whole? Joe's heartbeat thundered in his chest, drowning out everything else. He fought through it, forcing out the words. For the first time in years, he felt truly alive, each note connecting him to the audience more than he ever thought possible. As the final chords rang out, he opened his eyes to find the crowd applauding, some standing on their feet. The overwhelming roar of approval wrapped around him like a warm blanket. In that moment, everything made sense. He had stepped beyond the edge of fear and into something beautiful. The shaking stopped, replaced by a glow of exhilaration. But just as the thrill washed over him, a thought flickered in the back of his mind. Was this the beginning, or merely a bridge leading somewhere deeper? Caroline rushed forward, her face bright with joy. "You did it, Joe. You really did it." But before he could fully process her words, a voice called out from the crowd, "Where do you learn to play like that?" And Joe realized, as the applause faded into fervent whispers, he was standing on the brink of something much bigger than just a showcase. What awaited him next could change everything he had ever known. Joe blinked against the bright lights of the stage, overwhelmed by the rush of adrenaline and anticipation. The voice from the crowd echoed in his mind, juicy possibilities filling the air. Here he was, a guy who had always felt invisible, finally stepping into the spotlight. Where do you learn to play like that? The question hung there like an invitation, drawing him forward. Just practice and stuff. He mumbled, the weight of the moment almost suffocating. But the warmth of applause still tingled across his skin, lifting him slightly above the ground. He glanced at Caroline, buoyed by her smile, which felt like an anchor amid the swirling chaos. Suddenly, a figure pushed through the crowd, tall and confident, with a booming voice that cracked like thunder. Seriously, man. You're incredible. I can't believe you've been hiding that talent all this time. Thanks, Joe replied, half laughing, half astonished. Who was this guy, and why was he so invested in Joe's moment? I'm Tim, he declared with an outstretched hand. I run the local music festival, and that performance? It was fire. We've got an event coming up, and I want you to play. Just think about it. You could really take off, man. Tim's words sent a jolt through him. His heart raced with excitement and disbelief. An opportunity like this felt otherworldly. But a flicker of doubt shadowed the thrill. What if he wasn't good enough? Wouldn't they discover he was just a dishwasher playing pretend? I don't know, man. I mean, I've only been doing this for fun, Joe stammered, as his dreams began to shimmer just out of reach. Exactly. Fun. But fun can lead to amazing things. Tim's enthusiasm was infectious, stirring something deep within Joe. Trust me, I see potential. Just imagine performing not just here, but all over. Caroline stepped closer, her eyes glistening with excitement. Joe, you have to do this. This is what you've wanted. He felt the heat of her belief wrapping around him, chasing away the doubts like shadows. What if this was his moment? What if he could become what he had always wanted, a real musician? But then another voice rose from the back, cutting through the buzz of the crowd. He's just a dishwasher. He won't make it, trust me. The laughter rippled through the crowd, tightening around his throat. Joe clenched his fist, the sting of insecurity biting deep. Everyone had a past, but he had always felt his own was written in shadows. But then, out of nowhere, a voice echoed back at them. You ever seen a dishwasher who can strum like that? Give the guy a break. A ripple of support surged through the crowd, and Joe's chest swelled with gratitude. They believed in him, even when he hesitated. Maybe he needed to believe in himself, too. Joe took a deep breath. Okay, Tim, let us talk. I want to hear more. As discussions began swirling about the festival, the crowd started to disperse, leaving Joe and Caroline sitting on a bench. Do you think this is really happening? He asked, disbelief still tinged with excitement. I think this is just the beginning, she replied, her smile wide and hopeful. But as their laughter faded into the evening air, a twinge of worry nestled in his heart. What if he failed? What if the music he loved so much turned into a burden instead of a joy? Joe looked out at the stars beginning to sparkle in the dusky sky. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he had taken the first step. Was it enough, though? Could a dishwasher really become more than just a bystander in his own life? The thought lingered, heavy and bright, like the strumming of his guitar still buzzing in his chest. As doubt and hope danced together, Joe realized the real challenge was yet to come. What did it mean to truly embrace his passion, and where would it lead him next? The next day, Joe's world turned upside down. The sun poured through the window, but it felt dull compared to the excitement that bubbled inside him. He could hardly concentrate at the dishwasher station, the clattering plates and sizzling pans fading into the background as he replayed last night's performance in his mind over and over. Earth to Joe. A familiar voice broke through his thoughts. It was Greg, his coworker and closest friend at the diner. You're daydreaming again. What is going on? Joe grinned, almost shyly. I might get to play at the music festival. Tim said he wants me. Whoa, that's huge. Greg nearly dropped a stack of plates. You? On stage? Dude, that's like some fairy tale stuff. You're gonna be famous. Famous. The words sent a thrill through him, but also stoked the fire of his insecurities. Let us not get ahead of ourselves. It's just a talk. Just a talk? Man, you showed talent. You've got to go for it. No more hiding behind that apron. Joe laughed, pushing doubts away. Greg was right. In that moment, all he could think about was the music, the freedom of strumming his guitar, and the thrill of performing. As the lunch rush dwindled, he found himself slipping away to the corner booth, pulling out his phone. The small screen glowed, displaying a message from Tim saying they should meet that weekend to discuss everything. He saved it, staring at those words as if they held the secrets to his future. That evening, Joe sat on his bed, guitar in hand, practicing fervently. The notes danced through the air, lifting his spirits. He could feel the energy from last night's crowd buzzing in him, and each chord felt like stepping closer to a new reality. But that nagging voice of doubt crept back in. What if he messed up? What if he let everyone down? The fear of failure gripped him, and for the first time in days, he hesitated, fingers paused on the strings. Breathe, he muttered to himself, remembering Caroline's encouraging words. With a deep breath, he plunged back into playing, pouring every ounce of his emotion into the strings. The music wrapped around him like a warm hug, and he felt powerful. Still, at the back of his mind, the voice from the crowd haunted him, taunting him about his past. The dishwasher, what did he know about real stages and audiences? Suddenly, his phone buzzed again, jolting him from his thoughts. A notification popped up. Tim wants to meet in an hour. Don't be late. An hour? Panic washed over him like a cold wave. He scrambled to get ready, his heart racing. This was happening faster than he thought. As he stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his shirt, he noticed the gleam of determination in his reflection, a shadow of who he used to be. He smiled, feeling the music within rise like a fire. On the ride to the meeting spot, Joe's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. The cafe was bustling with energy, and he spotted Tim sitting at a corner table, animatedly chatting with someone. "All right, Joe, this is it," he whispered, stepping into the room, a mix of anticipation and anxiety heavy in the air around him. "Hey, Joe." Tim spotted him and waved, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. "Let us get down to business." As Joe approached, he felt a surge of courage mixed with hesitation. What was he about to jump into? This chance could change everything. He could become someone, or he could crash hard. It was time to embrace the possibility, but would he find the strength to keep going? Taking a deep breath, he got ready to face not just Tim, but the truth within himself. The moment of truth was about to unfold. How far would he let this journey take him? The sound of laughter and clinking cups echoed around the cafe as Joe approached Tim's table. He couldn't shake the feeling that the noise was somehow amplifying his anxiety. The vivid aroma of coffee mixed with the sweet scent of pastries tempted him, but he couldn't indulge now. Not when something vital was on the line. "Hey, buddy." Tim's smile was infectious, easing some of Joe's nerves. "I've been telling my friend about that performance last night. You blew everyone away." "Thanks, man," Joe replied, his voice slightly shaky. He felt exposed under Tim's enthusiasm. "But I'm just a dishwasher, right? This is all new to me." Tim leaned in closer. "That's exactly why we're meeting. You're not just a dishwasher anymore. You've got talent, and with the festival coming up, we can make this happen." Joe shifted uncomfortably. "What if I'm not good enough? What if I choke on stage? I've never done anything like this before." "Listen," Tim began, his tone shifting to something more serious. "If you don't try, how will you ever know? There are thousands of people out there who dream about performing, and you have a shot. This isn't a small deal." The weight of Tim's words hung in the air, settling deep in Joe's gut. He looked around the cafe, observing the people immersed in their daily routines, unaware of the internal struggles of others. Were they chasing dreams too? Or had life pulled them off route, like it nearly did to him? "Okay, what's the next step?" Joe asked, surprising himself with his own determination. Tim's face lit up. "First, I'm going to hook you up with a few local bands and musicians. You'll get a chance to practice in front of a crowd, but a friendly one. No pressure, just music." Joe nodded, feeling a spark ignite inside him. If he could play in front of friendly faces, maybe that would ease the fear. "And the festival? How does that work?" Tim leaned back, crossing his arms. "The festival has an open call for performances. You'll submit a video of one of your songs, and if they like it, you'll get scheduled to play. We need to make it count." As they talked, the weight of Joe's insecurities began to lift. Each casual remark about opening acts and promotion swapped his doubts for excitement. He felt himself stepping toward a path he had only dreamt of before, but the nagging thoughts always lurked, reminding him of his past failures. What if I don't get picked? What if I disappoint everyone? "Hey," Tim said, noticing the flicker of uncertainty in Joe's eyes. Not trying is the only guaranteed failure here. But if you put everything into it, you'll surprise yourself. That mantra buzzed in Joe's mind, mixing hope with fear. As the meeting wrapped up, they made plans to meet the next day for practice. Joe felt a rush of exhilaration. This wasn't just about music. It was about fighting against the limitations he'd placed on himself for too long. Walking back home, his heart raced not from anxiety, but from anticipation. Could he really step into the light after years in the shadows? In this world that seemed so vast, was he truly ready to find his place? As he strummed his guitar that evening, every note seemed to reshape his fear into determination. Yet, with the rising hope came whispers of doubt. How far could he really go? Tomorrow was just a practice session, but what would it lead to? Would he finally unveil the musician locked within or return to the shadows of the dishwasher once more? That question hovered heavily in the air, waiting to be answered. The sun peered through the window as Joe woke the next morning, a warm glow dancing across his bedroom walls. For the first time in a long while, he felt an inkling of excitement instead of dread as he prepared for the day. The world outside buzzed with possibilities, and somewhere in there, he hoped to find his place. Breakfast was a hasty affair. He inhaled his toast while glancing at his guitar propped against the wall, the wood catching the light just right. Today was more than a practice session. It was a fragile, bright chance to show the world who he was meant to be. Arriving at the small studio where he was set to meet Tim and a few local musicians, Joe's breath hitched. Strains of guitar riffs and purposeful laughter floated from within, tugging at his nerves as he stood at the door. What if he didn't belong here? What if they saw through him? Just be yourself, he reminded himself, repeating Tim's words like a mantra as he stepped inside. His heart thundered for a different reason. Talented musicians milled around, laughing and tuning their instruments. They looked vibrant and full of life, and for a moment, he felt like an imposter. Joe. Tim spotted him and bounded over with enthusiasm. You ready? Not sure, Joe admitted, his voice low, feeling the weight of judgment in the air. Simon, everyone was a beginner once. Let us get you comfortable, all right? Tim's reassuring smile cut through the anxiety like a beacon. The next hour was a whirlwind. Tim introduced him to Jesse, a fiery singer with an infectious laugh, and Mark, a bassist whose laid-back flow made Joe instantly feel at ease. They shared stories, joked about the local music scene, and, surprisingly, Joe found himself relaxing. Finally, it was time to play. The moment he picked up his guitar, the whole world shifted. Every string beneath his fingers connected him to decades of forgotten dreams. He strummed the first few chords, and the room faded into an echo of voices. The sound of his music caught people's attention. One by one, heads turned. Wow, Jesse exclaimed. That's beautiful. What is that song about? Joe paused, a lump forming in his throat. His heart raced, but the eagerness in her eyes pushed him to respond. It's about struggling to find yourself. Like, not knowing if your dreams are worth chasing. The room was silent, everyone focused on him. Joe felt so exposed. Yet, for the first time, he didn't want to shy away. He took a deep breath, took the leap, and played the entire piece. As he played, a willingness to be raw and unguarded washed over him. The notes poured from his soul, echoing his doubts, his longings, and the hope blooming inside. When he finished, an electric quiet settled in the space. Applause erupted. In that moment, Joe felt something shift inside him. Not just applause, but acceptance, recognition of a truth he was finally voicing. He looked at Tim, whose eyes gleamed with pride. Jesse's grin was radiant, and Mark gave him a thumbs up. Dude, you're incredible, Tim exclaimed. This is just the beginning. But alongside that thrill lay a familiar fear creeping in. What if this moment was a fluke? What if he couldn't do it again? The doubts whispered in the back of his mind, fighting against the bright warmth of the applause. Next week's open mic night, Tim announced suddenly, his excitement palpable. You're going to perform there. We'll get you set up. Wait, what? Joe's heart dropped. The stakes had just risen. A room full of strangers. What if he froze? What if he failed? But before he could spiral into anxiety, Tim placed a hand on his shoulder. It's your time, man. Don't let fear steal this from you. Joe stared at the floor, the weight of his dreams pressing down again. Can he really do this? Step into the light and risk another fall? The applause still echoed in his ears. Tomorrow's decision loomed, standing tall before him like a door waiting to be opened. Would he find the courage to walk through it, or would fear push him back into the shadows? Joe stirred awake to a new morning, sunlight flooding his room like golden paint splashing on a blank canvas. The anxious grip of doubt was still present, but excitement tugged at his heart. Mix-matching his feelings, the contest of fear versus hope was real. Today was the day, open mic night. He could feel the thrum of possibility dancing around him, igniting the dream he had kept buried within the confines of dirty dishes and grease-stained aprons. He swung his legs over the side of the bed, forcing himself to focus on the guitar resting in the corner, a quiet ally for his ongoing battle against self-doubt. After enduring a hasty breakfast, he packed his guitar and stepped outside, feeling the fresh air kiss his face. The world felt different, vibrant. Every sound was amplified, from the laughter of kids down the street to the hum of cars passing by. "This is your moment, Joe," he whispered, channeling Caroline's unwavering belief into a deep breath. "Just do it for yourself." Arriving at the small venue later that night, the energy swirled around him as a mixture of nerves and excitement mingled in his gut. The darkened room buzzed with whispers and laughter, colored by soft lighting. It felt like stepping into a new universe where anything could happen. Joe glanced at the sign-up sheet on the table, the blank lines staring back at him like a challenge. Swallowing the lump in his throat, he traced his finger across the page and wrote his name. His hands shook as he watched the performers before him, each one pouring their soul into the microphone, each note a raw testament to their truth. It was beautiful and terrifying at once. A wave of inspiration washed over him, and the warm glow of anticipation began to seep beneath his skin. Each artist on stage ignited a flicker of courage within him, urging him to step beyond his fears, and then it hit him. This chance was not about achieving perfection. He was here to express himself, to connect, to share the honest narrative that had been building within. That thought felt electric. When his name was called, time slowed. Heart pounding, he climbed a few steps to the stage, the spotlight washing over him in an embrace. Joe took a deep breath, feeling the weight lift. It was no longer about being the dishwasher, it was about being Joe, the musician. He strummed the first few chords, the vibrations reverberating through the microphone, filling the room with an alive energy. Joe's voice joined the melody, breaking free from the grip of restraint, wrapping around the lyrics that had been his secret longing. With every note, he released the burdens he had carried for so long, expectations, fears, the voice telling him he wasn't enough. As he sang, he noticed faces in the crowd lighting up, some were nodding. Others had their eyes closed, losing themselves in the moment. The connection fueled him, bravery blossoming in its wake. His heart soared with each passing verse, breaking down walls he had spent years erecting. When he finished, the applause hit him like a wave, crashing against the shore while he stood in the glow of achievement. People were on their feet, cheering, and Joe felt something shift deep inside him, a kind of acceptance that he had long yearned for. Stepping off the stage, Tim was there, arms stretched wide, a proud grin covering his face. "You absolutely crushed it. I knew you could." The reassurance felt like a spark, igniting deeper desires within him. "You really think that?" Joe asked, disbelief washing over him like a shower of blessings. "You don't just have potential, man, you have a gift. Keep performing. This is only the beginning." Tim's enthusiasm wrapped around him like a protective cloak as he soaked in the moment. Caroline rushed over, tears glistening in her eyes. "I told you. I knew you could do it. You were amazing. This is everything." Her energy ignited him again, dispelling the last traces of doubt lingering in his chest. In that instant, as they celebrated together, Joe understood. The journey had just begun. Steps toward his dreams would weave him closer to his family, not pull him apart. He wasn't just the dishwasher anymore. He was Joe, the artist, the brother who could inspire hope. The night faded into laughter and conversations, and as he experienced the joy of finally stepping into his own light, he felt ready to face whatever was ahead. The applause sparked a hunger within him to chase this newfound path, and somewhere underneath, the dishes clattering in his past became less daunting, that he wasn't afraid anymore. It was clear he wouldn't let fear steal this awakening. With each performance, Joe was on the path toward not only discovering who he was, but who he might become. And with that realization, he felt whole. So, here it goes. Like a leap into an orchestra, Joe knew. Every moment could be the performance of a lifetime. He stepped forward firmly, bravely ready to embrace everything the world had to offer. Now, are you ready to step into your own moment? Don't wait another second. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that can inspire and uplift your creativity. It's time to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and send this beautiful message into the world. Tell me how this story touched you. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about the ending. And please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation happen. Every bit of support helps spread the light. You need to support the channel now.